Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. My guest today is a former Catholic priest who has written a novel that, according to one reviewer, features, quote, a strong erotic undertow into the deeper issues of justice and truth. The author is my guest today, Clark Gabriel Field of Evansville, author of The Celibate, Robert of Paduke. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I guess the first question I have to ask you is, since you used to be a Catholic priest, is this novel in any way autobiographical?
They tell me that your first novel is always somewhat autobiographical. There's a twist in the story, and the twist really happened in Evansville. And it's true, if that's what happened. And that's really kind of the reason I wrote the novel, because when I heard this, I thought, wow, that would make a good novel. But I changed it from a married man to a Catholic priest. And with my background in the priesthood, 20 years, 12 years in the seminary, so for 32 years I was pretty closely involved with the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And I'm still a Catholic. Mm-hmm. So this is a fictional story about a fictional person. Some of the things really did happen. Some are stories that I know about, and so I just incorporated it all to the story.
Now, you were a priest in Western Kentucky for many, many years?
20 years. Well, I went to Evansville. I was about 10 years in Owensboro Diocese and about 10 years in the Evansville Diocese.
So you actually had been in Paducah a number of times?
I lived here for about 15 months, and I lived in Fancy Farm, and so my brother was here at St. Francis de Sales as a priest.
And who is your brother?
Bill.
Bill.
Father Bill Field was there, took care of Calvert City.
Right.
Central City.
Right.
So I've had a lot of connections through the years here.
Now, in the book, Robert of Paduke is descended from the legendary Chief Paduke.
That's correct.
How did you come up with that as a plot line?
Well, I had him being from Paducah as a priest, and then I thought, well, I'll make him part Native American. So he's a multicultural person, so that his racial background plays a pretty important role in the whole book.
Mm-hmm. His actual name in the book is Robert Holloway.
That's right.
And he is part Irish and part Native American?
And part African American.
Part African American.
He's 3 different parts.
Fascinating. Fascinating. You had written things before, obviously, I'm sure. What made you decide to write a novel? And how does one go about writing a novel?
Well, I just, when I began to think about it, I thought I've had a lot of experiences in my life, and a lot of good ones were here in Paducah. And I just thought I've learned certain things in my life, and I thought maybe I could share my perception of some realities and make it a fiction, make that the forum of it.
Mm-hmm. You also told me before we went on the air that you were actually arrested and jailed in Paducah once.
Actually, I wasn't arrested. Actually, I was given a ticket, a $10 traffic ticket, and I told them I would not pay the fine. When I went before the judge, he said, "You're fined $10. I had a witness. The police didn't. They had no real reason to stop me, other than there was a teenage African-American friend in the back seat. My younger brother was in the front seat with me. So when they found out that I lived in Paducah and they found out that I was a Catholic priest, the officer that stopped me gave me a ticket, did not know what to charge me with. And so he asked his supervisor what to charge me with. He said, "Well, I don't know. I wasn't here. You're the one that was here. I heard them talking." So I knew it was because the police were trying to separate African-American youth from European-American youth. And there was a coffee house in the basement of St. Francis de Sales Rectory. And another young priest, Father Bob Garlick, and I were running the coffee house. And we knew that they were trying to separate the black and white kids. And I knew that's why I was stopped.
And what year was this?
1971.
So that is the sort of the tail end of the Jim Crow segregation era.
Yes, I would say yes.
Yeah. And weren't you involved in civil rights protests in Cairo?
I went to Cairo a number of times. Really, I was afraid to go because it was such a hot spot.
The Birmingham of the North, it was called.
It was the hot spot in this country at that time,
Right.
the way I recall.
Right.
But some of the college and high school students that I kind of ran around with or ministered to said they were going over. And I thought, well, if they have the courage to go on a Saturday when they had those demonstrations, then I better go too. So I went over there, and I got to know the priest over there, and they gave me a very different story than what the newspaper was carrying. So I got involved in that somewhat. A lot of stories about that.
Oh, sure. And so then you were a parish priest?
I was a parish priest at stationed at St. Thomas More, and I took care of St. Mary Le Center, which comes into the book.
How does that, and again, we don't want to give away the plot, but
No.
kind of to sort of stimulate interest, I guess, is tell us how these various Western Kentucky areas fit into this book.
Well, the diocese was changed from the Owensboro diocese to the Owensboro-Paducah diocese. And so then you had some problems geographically because some of the offices were here and some still in Owensboro. The priest is stationed, he's not stationed at a parish, but he's helping out at St. Mary Le Center in Paduke County where I ministered. And so his role as being, he was in charge of sacred architecture for the diocese. He had a background in engineering, and so he worked in a local office here in Paducah. And so he got involved with, they're building a new school, and he got involved with a union strike, and so he began to get involved in justice issues. And he had a very fiery temper, like Chief Paduke had a very fiery temper, and made quick decisions. And so that got him into trouble. So he's trying to find himself. He's trying to, as the only man of color in an all-white diocese, he's used the racial card to get what he wants. So up until this point, where the book starts, he's gotten what he wanted in the diocese. He was kind of like a pet, a special person. But then as he begins to have trouble with the hierarchy and with the law and with justice issues, then he begins to get into some trouble. And so the story is about his troubles and how he reacts to them.
Now, is the whole book set in Western Kentucky?
Yes. The only time we go to Gethsemane, he takes a leave, he takes some time off and goes to Gethsemane, Kentucky, which is Nelson County.
It's near Bardstown, isn't it?
Near Bardstown, to make a retreat. Other than that, it's Paducah, Owensboro, Le Center, some stories about Hickman.
So when people read the book, if you're a Western Kentuckian, you will certainly recognize the places.
The places and maybe some of the people.
And maybe some
a
of the
couple of the people, but I tried to kind of camouflage that a little bit.
Sure. Is there a love interest in this book?
Well, he's dealing with his celibate. It's called the celibate, so he's dealing with his celibacy, so he's dealing with his sexuality, and he's trying to figure out if he wants, what he wants to do with his celibacy. And so, as one of the reviews says, beautiful women are along the trail, and he is a very, very handsome person.
Well, now, you are married now,
That's right.
Did you leave the priesthood because you wanted to be married?
When I took a leave from St. Anthony in Evansville, St. Anthony Parish, I told them, if you hear the reason I'm taking a leave, you'll know it's false because there's 17 reasons why I'm leaving.
Well, Martin Luther had 95 theses. You had 17 reasons.
17 reasons, which was, of course, a fictional number, but it was the idea that there were a lot of things. I enjoyed the priesthood. I was a priest for 20 years. But during the 20 years, I took 2 years off at different times for various reasons. So marriage would be one of the reasons, but the leadership in the church, the sexism in the church, the racism in the church, there were a lot of things that I I felt like it was time for me to go. I feel like I was moving on, you know. It's like I enjoyed the 20 years as a priest, but as I grew and changed, it was time for me to make some decisions.
Well, it sounds like that you were very much an activist priest in the mold of Father Holloway here. Agree with
Yes,
that?
yes. I was an activist priest, got involved in the peace movement and migrant workers. When I was in Fancy Farm down in Graves County, I got involved in the migrant workers. I never thought I didn't know we had migrant workers in Kentucky. And when I got sent down, my first assignment outside of St. Charles in Carlisle County, they said, well, you've got the largest strawberry farm in the country, and you've got the migrants. And what are you going to do about the migrants? So I was kind of thrown into some situations, and I became quite activist. I was on the national committee of the Warrior Sisters League for 5 years, and so I learned a lot. It's like I lived on a little farm in Davis County, and I was shielded from the world, actually.
I was going to say those views probably wouldn't be all that popular in Western Kentucky. You certainly were marching to a different drummer in this part of the country.
I think so. Yeah, I think I was, and that's kind of interesting how that happened. But I consider it a great advantage of mine to be on some state commissions and some federal commissions and things, where I got out of town and began to get more of a picture of the real world, and not being sheltered as you would be in the priesthood.
Of course, the issue of celibate priests is as current as today's headlines.
That's right.
Being a Catholic, you still are. How do you feel about that? A, do you think the church should permit priests to be married? And B, do you think it will ever?
Oh, yes, it will. I mean, I feel confident of that because it's just a human rule that now doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to a lot of us. So I think it will change. How long it takes, that's anybody's guess. We used to kid when I was still in the priesthood and saying, well, we won't see it, but our children will, But I think it's coming. The big issue now that bothers me the most is what the Vatican is doing with gay seminarians and gay priests, and I think that's an issue that all Catholics should take a stand on.
Well, on the issue of married priests, do you think most rank and file Catholics would support the idea of having a married priest?
Oh, yes. I think they've taken surveys years ago. Yes. Oh, I think definitely.
Well, what's holding them back on that issue?
I don't know. I don't know, because we have such a terrific shortage of priests, because Catholics are not getting to get the sacraments or the masses like they'd like to, because a priest may be in charge of several parishes, and they're closing down parishes all over the country, closing down churches all over the country. I think Catholics want to receive the sacraments. They want to take part in Mass. And so when you have such a limited number, I think that the day has passed. I think it's fine for a person to be celibate. That's a charism, what I would call a charism. It's a calling. And you have Protestant ministers that are celibate, and you have Catholic priests that are celibate. That's fine. But to say you must be celibate in order to be a priest, that's the problem.
Well, are there any of the major world religions that require their priests to be celibate?
I'm not sure of the Eastern churches. I think you have Buddhist monks that are celibate. And I'm sure you have some churches, but I think the main Western churches, the Eastern Catholic Rite, not the Roman, they're uniates, they're under the Pope, and they allow married men to be ordained.
I was thinking that's the Eastern Orthodox.
Not Orthodox.
Just
Orthodox do, but they're not under Rome.
Right.
So they're not uniate.
Right, exactly.
So the Orthodox are much larger.
Right.
But you have Orthodox uniates.
Right.
Or you have Eastern uniates under the Pope.
Right.
Under the Vatican, that allow married men to be priests. And if an Episcopal priest or a Protestant minister wants to become a Catholic priest, they come in with their children and family and everything. So there's some inconsistencies here. And the uniate, different rites, there are about 6 rites in the Catholic Church. Roman is only 1. The other rites are just as Catholic as the Roman, but they do have married men as priests. So It's very inconsistent, and so, you know, what can we say?
It's obviously a major issue, and again, from pure practicality. I mean, growing up here, I can remember. Well, there were at St. Mary High School. I think priests. It wasn't that a Jesuit high school. The Jesuits were the
Christian
great
Brothers.
Christian Brothers. But you think now? I think most of the people who teach at St. Mary are lay people.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Protestants, some even.
Oh, I'm sure.
So you're seeing a tremendous dwindling away of that.
Yeah.
Well, does Robert Holloway? How does he deal with this issue of celibacy? I mean, he's taken the vows of celibacy, but yet he has human urges. Without giving away the plot of the book, how does he wrestle with this?
Well, I think he's trying to be. Actually, it's not a vow. It's a promise.
Pardon my Protestant
No,
heritage.
that's close enough. Close enough. You take a. Let me go back. I think I was wrong. I think that is the vow when you're made subdeacon. That's tied in with it. But right before you're ordained, you make a promise to obey your bishop. That's the promise. How does he deal with it? Well, he struggles with it. You know, that's part of the thing. In other words, he gets to know he has some real close friends that are women, and he gets to know them. And so that's the conflict. That's the struggle in the book. He has a mentor, and some of the Catholics will know who this person is very well. In the book, he is Father Riley. But everybody,
Good Irish name.
Yes, but the people here will know who that is because that's really a priest, Phil Riney, who's still living, and he gave me the okay to use him. But he's his mentor, so he does bounce these things.
Father Riney.
Phil Riney was here, pastor of St. Francis de Sales Church, very popular priest in the diocese. Still comes down this way and helps out. He's retired, but he comes down and helps out.
Mm-hmm.
And so he does go to him, and I mean they do kick some things around. And
so you went to his permission and said, "Can I insert you in this book? Only call you Riley." And
yes, I want him to know because just a very slight change in spelling. Everybody, many people know who it is. So he said fine. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So. Well, again, we don't want to give away the plot.
Yeah.
But what are the other strands, the themes that run through this book? Besides that?
Well, he, like I said, he got involved in the strike. He was kind of the liaison with the diocese and the union and the builder, the construction company. He gets into conflict with that because he sees things fairly clear in the sense of justice for the workers, and the diocese is a little more political and trying to get a school built. So you have some conflicts there. Even with his father, who was a retired commander, naval commander, he has some little conflicts with his father there on what is his role as a Catholic priest working for the Catholic diocese.
Now that's interesting that you bring that up. A few weeks ago, as a guest on another program I have here, I had Father Tony Shonis, who is publishing a newsletter called The Catholic Worker.
Oh, is he?
Yes, and he's out of Owensboro, I believe.
He taught at Brescia. He was at Catholic High and at Brescia many years.
And of course, traditional Catholic social teaching embraces the right of workers to organize and bargain collectively.
And strike.
And strike,
And
exactly.
Strike, and they have
So this also
rights.
is a very timely issue in this book.
That's right. That's right. He does go to Rome. Something comes up, and he decides that he needs to go to Rome. Kind of like St. Paul, but St. Paul said, "Take me to Rome."
Right, right. Now, what is the actual time, the setting of this book? 1970s?
1999.
Oh, it's current.
It's current. It started in 1999, and it's current.
How long did it take you to write it?
It took me about five to 6 years, and then another year and a half to get it published and get it to market it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was. So I wrote on and off.
I was going to say on and off, just as the Spirit moved you.
That's right. And an interesting thing about it, and other writers have told me the same thing, is you start off with an idea, and then the book takes a life of its own. It just goes on, and you're not sure what's going to happen.
Well,
I didn't know what was going to happen.
That's kind of like a television interview, actually.
Is that right?
Exactly. You start out with an idea, and then it just goes, wherever it goes.
Yeah.
Did you? What is your technique? Do you use a word processor or write it on napkins, or exactly what did you do?
Just typed it on the computer.
Just something would strike and you would sit down and.
I would be thinking about like during the day, and then I may write down a few things, but then go down and sit there and then begin to type, and then this seemed like, to me it's a realistic story. And the sexual parts in it I don't apologize for. To me it's a story about a human being who's struggling with his identity and his sexuality and his role in this big institutional church. He's struggling with that, and he's trying to find his way. And to me, it's a realistic story.
And would you say, well, being a priest yourself, that many priests obviously struggle with this?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
So 1999, so the time, it starts in 99 and ends when?
The whole book, it takes, I'd say less than 2 years. It's basically year to 2 years.
2 years in the life of this priest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got the manuscript now. You finished it. It's all typed up. How did you go about getting it published at that point?
I joined a writers group in Evansville. We meet regularly, and we're all writing books or poems or something. And so I began to find out what other people were doing, and most of the group decided to self-publish. So it's print on demand, POD. I sent out about 50 letters to get an agent. I got an agent in Florida. She liked the book. She said it's sellable, it'll sell, but she didn't get it published. So then my wife and I decided to go with Author House, which is the largest POD in this country, print-on-demand company, out of Bloomington.
Bloomington, Indiana?
Indiana.
Yeah, okay. We have a copy of the book, which I will try to hold up properly here. Nice cover artwork. Who did that for you?
Nino Cocciarelli. I think we have his name in there. Yes, he's very, very good, and I thought I could do the thing, but what I thought would be a good cover didn't turn out so good. So he did. He asked me what it was about, and he always tries to incorporate the background, the story into the cover. And so got many compliments on the cover.
How did he come up with that design, by the way? That's a rather interesting design.
Well, you have the candles. You have the visual candles there in the front. You have the stained glass window in the back.
Yes.
You have hands of a person of color reaching out, and you have a large picture of a woman. And so...
So I guess you can judge this book by its cover. It has all the elements.
Well, it tells you a little bit about it, you know. Yeah.
Very interesting. And this is, how does one go about getting a copy of this?
Well, there's a website. I'll leave you some cards. I've got some cards here with the website on it. The website's just my name, www.clarkgabrielfield.com. And if you check out the web, you'll get excerpts. You'll get a little synopsis of the story. You'll get some reviews. And then you can order the book straight from the cover. I mean, from the website, through Author House. You can order it. We also will have it here in Paducah. It'll be available, hopefully, more than one place in Paducah.
The opening quote I used came from a review by Byron Rohrig. Rohrig, I guess that's the pronunciation.
Rohrig.
From the Evansville Courier and Press. And he says, and I quote, "Protagonist Father Robert Holloway drives down a western Kentucky highway with dents in his fenders, too. That fact helps make Clark Gabriel Field's tale ring true as he details Holloway's struggle to move forward in faith through questions about his identity and his sexuality and against strong headwinds generated by the church bureaucratic. You'll be taken by a strong erotic undertow into the deeper issues of justice and truth." Pretty positive review, I would say.
Yeah.
In that. Some of the other things readers have said in the time we have left. This is from a former high school teacher. "A reader's first impression of Clark Field's novel, The Celibate, might well be that the title is something of a paradox. Father Robert Halloway, during his pastoral journey, is tempted on several occasions to break his vows. But that is by no means the only obstacle he faces. Among others, conflicts with church authorities, social and racial issues, and lingering doubts about the validity of his vocation. Other novels have attempted to portray a priest's life. One that comes to mind, Graham Greene's The Power and the Glory, about the trials and tribulations of a whiskey priest. But even Greene's classic doesn't contain the details of a priest's daily challenges like Clark Field's novel does. You might well be reading Robert's Secret Chronicles. Are they also Clark's Secret Chronicles?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that, there's some similarities, of course, and I think, like I said, I think any priest probably struggles with celibacy, Maybe not. Maybe some have the charism, but I think that would be a natural call. And then there's also, where do you find the balance? When you want to be celibate and keep your vow, then where do you find the balance with friends, women? Where is that balance? In my first assignment, a long time ago, in Fancy Farm, I talked to one of the parishioners, and she was walking to church. Actually, it was out of St. Charles in Carlisle County, and I stopped to pick her up, and I think she was going to get in the back seat, and I said, come on, get in the front seat. But we talked about how it used to be that a woman was not allowed to sit in the front seat with the priest.
Right.
So we could talk about many stories about the olden times, about the strictness of that, In Evansville, I joined a priest group, a Vince Dwyer group. He was a Jesuit, he was a Cistercian priest, and he helped priests to get together and deal with their relationship with women, and said, if we're going to go to God, we've got to go horizontally through people. Some people think you go to God vertically, straight up. His theory was, no. You have to have relationships with women and with men, and you have to build relationships if you want to have a relationship with God.
Very interesting, indeed.
Yeah.
We are about out of time. I'm going to mention the book and its author one more time. The book is The Celibate, Robert of Paducah by Clark Gabriel Field. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. I'm Barry Craig, and we will see you next time.